So-
volleyball or just girls?
I'm spiking that ball.
Let's see.
Like literally everyone.
No, there's no way. 'Cause
There's definitely a way.
All right. So what we got today?
or kill.
We're gonna go through the next section of Discovery Education. Yeah, I know. We're all super excited. Everybody, Coach Chromebooks. Yeah. Coach Chromebooks. So, all right, volleyball time is over. We're starting class now. I've already started to talk. Time to be quiet. So we're gonna go through the history of life section. We'll watch a couple videos because the videos worked out pretty well last time. I have a lot of the stuff that you need to kind of know highlighted, so we'll touch on some of those things. And then Thursday and Friday we'll pick up starting on the assignments, and we'll finish it up next week. This is the 5th, 6 weeks, so next week towards the end, probably Thursday, because I haven't liked doing them on Friday. We will do the 6 weeks test. So make sure you're aware of the 6 weeks test and starting to study if you want to study up on some stuff. So let's go ahead and basically what we're talking about here is the history of life on Earth. How we know about the history of life on Earth is through fossils. And so most of this section is going to be about fossils, fossilized things, how they get fossilized, how we find them, all of that jazz. Huh?
Living fossils.
We do have some living fossils, yeah. But we're more concerned with the dead fossils. Those are the most interesting ones. But there are some pretty cool living fossils as well. So they talk a little bit about not living fossils. Now you messed me up. They talked a little bit about fossils. They talked about animals that went extinct, and we've talked a lot about the extinction events throughout Earth's history and how that kind of changes everything and ushers us into new sections of the geologic time scale. Let's see. They talk about how life originated on Earth. Is everybody excited? We're about to get 8 minutes of Bill Nye. So, Bill Nye the Science Guy. So, for Brandon Yang at home, everybody say hi to Brandon. Yeah, everybody wave to Brandon. Brandon might be back soon. I think November 2nd is when most of the online students come back. Although I've already heard I have one that's gonna stay at home, but that's okay. So we're all just dealing with whatever we got. But I think Yang will be coming back. Yeah.
I thought they had to come back.
Well, there's certain scenarios where apparently maybe you don't have to come back. I don't know. Or you could just disenroll and get in online school, which I've had several students do. So they can't like make you come back. You do have options, but if you don't have any reason to stay out, or if you're not gonna go to a different school, then November 2nd you'll be coming back. So I assume Brandon will be back on November 2nd. If he's not, he's not. It's all right. So we're gonna watch the Bill Nye video real quick, Brandon. You can scroll down and find the same Bill Nye video and watch it along. But I'm gonna pause it so YouTube doesn't take down. We do, not all scientists, but there's a growing portion of biological scientists that do believe that life started in the deep oceans, as opposed to like the kind of primordial soup pool right near the beach or at a place like Yellowstone. So it is something that we're working on, and them finding that kind of discovery was a pretty big breakthrough in fossil science. Let's see what this 1-minute video is.
Have we ever seen anything like in the lava pools?
No, not into the lava pools. We can take lava at. What are you talking about? At like Yellowstone?
Yeah, like the one like the water that we swim in, we die. We were like sitting like anything down there.
Oh yeah. We use probes and we take samples of the water and all sorts of stuff. We can't do it to like actual lava. But yeah, we sample those all the time. There's scientists there all the time. Huh?
Is there living organisms out there?
There's organisms that live kind of at the surface and around the edge, and maybe underneath. I'm not super familiar with them. I'm not super into biology, but yeah, there's all sorts of stuff living all around there. I mean, there's things living in the deep ocean that the water's like 700 something degrees Fahrenheit. They can live in those pools for sure. Bacteria and different small little organisms. They may not be part of like the overall food chain because there's nothing like grazing off of them or anything. But there's probably stuff living there. They have sunlight. They have nutrients. They have water. They have all the.
Think of life on Earth as part of a big tree, a tree of life. Biological organisms, both living and extinct, are placed around the tree according to their relationships with one another. To understand these relationships, scientists combine fossil and genomic evidence to fill in the evolutionary gaps. But when no genetic material is available, scientists must rely entirely on the fossil record. For instance, one of the most common fossils found around the world are from a class of marine arthropods called trilobites. Having gone extinct hundreds of millions of years ago, paleontologists have only their fossils to rely on.
Normally, we know a fossil species from one individual or maybe a couple individuals, and although we can get a lot of information, we don't know.
Yeah, like you can find trilobite. I have a trilobite fossil at home. You can find them all over the place. They died a long time ago, but they're a really good index fossil. We talked about index fossils yesterday because they lived all over the world. They lived for very short periods of time, and in the time period that they lived, they changed a lot. And so they showed like 3 or 4 pictures, and every single one of them looked a little bit different. That's why trilobites are really good. And so, yeah, you can find trilobites almost anywhere. I found one in Texas on a field trip at UTA. We went up to do some fossil hunting at this place just like right off the roadside. And actually, I found a trilobite, and one of my students, like I wasn't teaching there, but one of my classmates, there you go. He saw me find it, and he's like, "Oh, Mr. Lowell's going to try to take that from you." He's like, "Watch, I bet you he's going to come and try to like offer you a trade." And I was like, "Oh no, this is like the first fossil that I've really found like myself. I'm going to keep this one." And he came and like guilted me out of my fossil. But he traded me for a different trilobite. He's basically like, what are you going to do with that? He's like, "You know what you're going to do with it? You're going to take it home. You're going to put it in a drawer somewhere. It's going to sit there forever. You're never even going to look at it." He's like, "If you give it to me, I'll use it for science. I'll show it to students, and it'll be part of learning and education." But basically, the deal breaker was he offered me a better trilobite that looked better. And so, yeah, I did the trade with him.
So
And
why
you know where
would
it's
you
at?
trade?
It's at home in a drawer in my desk.
Why would you
It's
trade
probably
if you had a
fake.
better one?
Because the better one, that it looked better, but it was much more common. He got it from somewhere else, and it it's just a normal looking trilobite. Where mine was kind of like roughed up a little bit. It looked like a white piece of limestone kind of. Yeah, it was a little trilobite. It was pretty exciting to find it. There are all sorts of like marine fossils all around, but I guess the trilobites were a little rare. So now let's go through the book, and if we see another video that's worth watching, maybe we'll watch it. But I'm going to go through some of this pretty quick. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. So the first part, just basically, I'm turning the lights on. The first part basically just talks about what are fossils. It takes a second to get readjusted. There's 2 different types of fossils: a body fossil and a trace fossil. A body fossil is actually part of that body, whether it's a shell or bones or a carbonized fossil. There's all sorts of ways that you can preserve something's body parts. That's the standard fossil that we think of. We also have trace fossils. Trace fossils are fossilized evidence of plant existence or animal movements, such as footprints or burrows. So I mentioned,
Like an impression on like a rock.
yeah. So if you've ever been down to Tres Rios in what's the town? Glenrose. You go down to Glenrose where they have the river tubing. There's a little park there, and in the river where you can actually go and swim, there's dinosaur footprints like preserved in the rock. You can go down there and swim around and touch the dinosaur footprints. And so that's a type of trace fossil. Other trace fossils are going to be like dinosaur poop, which we call coprolites. Little burrows where they burrowed into the ground. Other things like that. Any kind of imprint that you have. So go down a little bit. There's a lot of stuff in here, so I'm going to try to go quickly. What gives an organism the potential to become a fossil? It needs to be buried pretty quickly. What happens to animals that die and just get left out on the surface?
They get those.
They get eaten, they decompose, both of them. And so that's the number one reason we don't really find complete skeletons. I might have mentioned this before. If you ever go to the museum and see a dinosaur skeleton, read the little like plaque that's next to it, and you'll find out that only a couple of the bones in that entire skeleton are actually real fossils. Everything else they recreate, they paint it up to make it look like a fossil because they just didn't find it. Maybe they found like a couple spinal pieces and like a femur, but like finding a T-Rex skull is pretty rare, and they're probably not going to put it in the museum. Most of it is just kind of recreated.
When you said like they swim in like the footprints or whatever,
Yeah, you can swim in the footprints.
like
It's like down in a creek.
how big are the
They're probably like that big. They're kind of hard to spot, but when you go, they have like a little piece of pipe cut out. So you go and like you look through the pipe and it points your eyes like in the right direction to see the footprint. And it's got to be the right time of day for you to be able to see it nice. But you can go down in the creek and go swimming. And there's like dinosaur footprints down there. They're preserved in the rock. It's not like in mud. It's like in solid rock now. They've been fossilized. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can go check it out.
So there's like water and then like that tube or whatever keeps it dry.
Well, yeah, there's kind
No. The tube is like up on the bank. It's almost like you ever seen the like where you put the quarters in and it has the like binoculars where you can see. It's like that, but it's not binoculars. It's just like a tube that's pointed down. So you look through the tube, and the only thing you can see is the part of the creek that has the dinosaur prints in it. And they even have a little plaque. I think they think that those dinosaur prints, there were two dinosaurs, and one of them was chasing the other one to like eat it. Because you can see two separate tracks. But you can go down in the creek and actually see like different prints as it's kind of walking.
What's totally
Huh? They weren't playing catch. Well, they were playing catch. I'm gonna catch you and I'm gonna eat you, and then you'll be dead. But yeah, that's what they were doing. So rapid burial is important because if you sit at the surface for a while, you're gonna decompose. Things are gonna eat you. They're gonna crunch up your bones, and we're not gonna have anything left to find. A gentle burial is also important. If you get like caught in a rock slide and you just get crushed all up, that's not gonna be great for your bones being preserved either. If you get covered up very quickly with mud in a gentle way, like in a big storm, that's going to be much better for your chances of being
like
preserved.
if you fall in quicksand.
Yeah, if quicksand were a thing the dinosaurs were real concerned about.
Does that mean that like ever since we started like burying people, there's gonna be a whole bunch of people?
Yeah, burial helps with human history and unfolding that because like what are some of the most famous people that first started to bury each other? The Egyptians. The Egyptians started to embalm each other so their bodies didn't even decompose in the normal way. And now we can go and like dig them up and find out that King Tut that the pyramids were built for was like a 16-year-old boy, and not like a really old king like you might imagine. Huh?
I thought it was.
Oh, he might be younger. I don't know. I'm not into Egyptian history. I'm just, I'm telling the story. But yeah, he was really young. And so, that preserving yourself does help. We tend to bury ourselves in wood caskets, and it's not an anoxic environment. So you do have a limited amount of time, but, in murder trials, they'll exhume your body and dig you up and see if there's any evidence left on it. And so, yeah, we do kind of preserve ourselves a little bit. And, you go to the morgue and they use embalming fluid and they kind of prepare your body to be preserved at least a little bit. Because no one wants to go like a week after you died and see you laying in the casket and you're like starting to decompose and it smells bad. Huh? We're starting to freeze people, but we're not going to wake you up. And freezing is expensive. How many freezers you going to have to make? Well, I mean, maybe they do that. They bury you in the ice in Alaska, but we don't live in Alaska. It's expensive to freeze people here. So look, burrowing animals are going to help that out. If they live in little holes in the ground, if they burrow themselves in, they're probably going to die in that hole, and that's going to help you get buried pretty quickly and maybe help you be preserved. Anoxic conditions, anoxic means no oxygen. And so anoxic conditions, if there's no oxygen, there's no bacteria to help your body decompose, you're more likely to be preserved. They say organic carbon-rich environments such as swamps, that's also going to be another anoxic environment. If like a tree falls down, have you ever seen the swamp tree people on TV? Y'all haven't seen that?
The swamp.
Y'all watch the alligator shows?
Oh, you mean swamp people?
Yeah. Well, no, but the swamp people, no, the swamp people are after the alligators, right? Okay, but there's another one where they go into the swamps to dig out like giant trees. And the trees are all preserved, and they slice them up, and they actually sell it for a lot of money. Look it up, man. It exists. Maybe it's not still running today, but it was when the swamp people was getting big.
I think it's been on the same show.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the History Channel. Yeah, right? Or is it A&E or something? I don't know.
National Geographic.
It's a National Geographic. But anyways, yeah, they go and dig out big trees out of the swamp because they get fossilized. And obviously, your hard parts are going to be a big deal. When we find dinosaur stuff, we don't find their skin. We think they maybe had feathers now. We don't find the feathers. We find your bones. Your bones, shells, all sorts of hard parts like that. That's, huh?
There's a lot of fossils in the swamp.
Oh, yeah. Fossils are where you get a lot of, or swamps are where you get a lot of fossils at. Swamps are also where we get all our oil and coal production, or a lot of our oil and coal production. So even organisms, this is very important, even organisms with very high preservation potentials are not guaranteed to become fossils. It's very hard to actually have that happen and you be preserved for millions and millions of years. It very rarely happens. So what we find is very incomplete. There's a lot of stuff that we're missing in the fossil record. There's a lot of animals that just, their fossils don't exist. We may never find them, even if we dig every hole under every rock. There's animals that existed and lived for a long time that we'll never know about. We'll never find their bodies. They're just lost to time and history. And even if you do get fossilized, if your body gets exposed to the surface, it's kind of like a rock now. It's going to be weathered away and eroded away, and it's going to be lost to history. So we're not going to be able to use that. That's a short video about the formation of fossils. I'm going to make sure we get through this real quick. So how do fossils form? We got a couple different things. We got preservation of original material. So you're not turning into a rock. We're like saving you as you are. And that's what you're talking about with the ice. So like mammoths frozen in ice, dinosaurs that fall in the tar pits. There's the famous like tar pits, La Brea tar pits in California. Insects in amber or sap. Yes. Those are original preservation. When you find those are the actual bodies. They've not decomposed. They're unchanged. You can get a lot of information from that.
What do you think the biggest thing enclosed in sap is?
We found insects, maybe like a small bird or something, but not anything really that much bigger. There's probably things that have been like covered in sap, but it wouldn't be like encased enough for you to be able to be preserved.
You would like walking out like into a cave. There's like a T-Rex just standing staring at you.
The next one is going to be carbonization. All of our bodies have carbon in them. We are carbon-based life forms. When we die, if it's preserved in the right way, that carbon can essentially stay around. So carbonized fossils form when the original organic carbon of an organism's body degrades. And basically, you get this black imprint of the carbon that's in your body. So when this happens to birds or fish, we can see their internal bone structure. You can see like the ribs, you can see the spine, you can see the fins. Same thing with birds. You can see some of their feather patterns. If it's preserved in a nice way and they get covered up pretty quickly, you can get these kind of like carbon imprints. Same thing with leaves. We have lots of carbon imprints of leaves. And so this is another way that you can be preserved. Permeabilization and petrification. Turn the lights back on. This is what, petrified wood is another way this happens. This is what most of the dinosaur bones that we find and we think of, this is how they form. So actually, they're underground for millions and millions of years. Water that has other minerals in them, like calcite or quartz or whatever, flows through the body. It flows through all the little pore spaces in all of your cells, and basically cell by cell replaces your bones with rock. So permineralization, that happens just a little bit, and you might have some original material left over. Petrification is like complete. We find your bone, but it's a rock bone now. There's no original bone material left. Like everything's been replaced by rock. But because of the way it replaces, we can see like cell patterns. We can see all sorts of stuff. In the same way, if you cut like petrified wood open, you can see some of the little vessels that move the water around and the shape of the tree, and maybe even tree rings, depending on how it worked out. And so there's lots of stuff that does get preserved, even if it's not the original material. And then we have casts and molds. So casts and molds, their examples are going to be a lot of sea creatures. If I have like an ammonite, which is like a, what are they called now? Like a nautilus. It has this shell that has this nice spiral pattern. When it dies, it falls down to the bottom of the ocean and sediment fills up the inside. So the sediment that fills up the inside is going to turn into a rock at some point in time, because it's a like soft, not too hard material. The shell might dissolve away. So the shell's long gone. The animal's body is long gone. But now I have a cast, essentially, of what happened on the inside. And so I have that. That's part of a fossil. If that gets covered up, you can get a mold, like an impression of the side of the animal. And so casts and molds are kind of the flip coin of the same thing. One of them's the actual inside of the animal. One of them's the outside that's kind of been pressed into the soil. So you can learn things from that. What else do we have? What can the fossil record tell us about the history of life on Earth? This gets into paleontology. You can use the fossil record to tell you about environments. If I find, has anybody, well, I don't know. You can go walking around here. I know you can see a lot of it on the trail in Getzendaner Park and Waxahachie. If you look down at the ground and kind of pay attention to what you're passing over, you'll find little shells. You'll find little shells everywhere all around Texas, because for a very long time, Texas was underwater. That's why all of our driveways are this like white limestone rock. That's an ocean rock. And so you can find ocean creatures all over Texas, and we didn't like bring them here. They lived here. And that tells us that for a long time, Texas was underwater, and those animals lived and died here. They got preserved in the rocks, and that's why we see them today. So it tells you a lot about the environment. It tells you a lot about the animals that lived here, and also how they died. Another thing is the evolution. You can see how animals changed, especially like with the trilobites that changed very quickly. We can see the earlier versions. We can see them change into each subsequent version, what they grew, how their heads grew, how many legs they had, their antennas changed, all sorts of different shapes. And we can guess about why. Like, why did they do this? I saw an interesting news story the other day that they were talking about how there's several different things in Earth's history that have evolved into crabs. Apparently, crabs have a pretty good, crabs. Like, they have a pretty good body structure for the area that they live in. And so we've seen different animals, like they call it like parallel evolution, evolve into kind of the same creature. But apparently crabs have a lot of different things that have evolved into crabs, and even some crabs that have evolved away from crabs and then back into crabs. And so it's a kind of an interesting news story. It wasn't written very well, but it was pretty good. So they talk about the rise of vertebrates and how having a like hard spinal column and having a hard internal structure has helped out a lot of animals, as opposed to just being squishy like jellyfish. Vertebra also allow you to stand up, walk on 4 legs, walk on 2 legs. Without that internal structure, we wouldn't be allowed to do that, and we would just kind of be flopping around on the ground, which wouldn't be great for us.
Do you think it's better to have like an exoskeleton?
One day when the insect aliens come, we'll find out. It'll be the battle of internal skeletons versus exoskeletons. No, I don't know. It depends, because
you're more exposed if you have an exoskeleton.
You're like your structure's exposed, and I don't know if there's any insects where like if your exoskeleton gets cracked, does your body repair it? It's like we break our bones.
It'll heal itself.
It will. Well, not always perfectly. We've gotten better at it, but we can at least heal ourselves a little bit. Like if an insect cracks its shell, if it gets stepped on, they're pretty much like donezo, I think. I don't know. But yeah, that's a good question. I'm sure if you ask like an insect scientist, there'll be benefits and drawbacks from it. So they talk a little bit about mass extinction, which we've talked about. They go through human evolution a little bit. Mass extinctions and adaptive radiation. This is when you have mass extinctions, a lot of species die. It leaves a lot of niches in the environment, and animals adapt to fill those niches and fill those spots that kind of have a lot of opportunity for growth and a lot of opportunity to take advantage of resources that aren't being taken advantage of. So they go through different extinction events, which we talked about before. And then now we're down to the bottom. So nice. Maybe as we do some of the other assignments, we'll watch some short videos in here. I'll see if there's anything worth watching. But we're to the end of class today, aren't we?
Brain pop. No.
Brain pop?
I don't know what brain pop is.
What?
What? I don't know what brain pop. What are you talking
Like
about?
the robot? With the robot guy?
Is a robot?
Yeah. There's a robot Chinese girl.
Yeah.
A robot and a Chinese girl? I don't know.
Is she Chinese?
I don't know.
I think she's Chinese. That's a girl?
Gage.
guy. They switched
There's one with a girl, right?
both.
All right. Well, Brandon, if you're at home, go watch some brain pop and tell me about it.
It's a boy or a girl.
Yeah. Send me an email. So,
Yeah,
so we kind of went over Earth history. So, have a nice day because class is about to end.